This show contains general information about legal matters. This information is not advice and should not be treated as such. If you have any specific questions about any legal matter, you should consult your attorney or other professional legal services provider. Be advised that while Cheapskate is a lawyer, he is not your lawyer. Also, Jimmy Franks is an idiot, and you should never take his advice.
You're listening to Song Crimes, where instead of jury tampering, we believe in jury pampering. I'm professional idiot Jimmy Franks, and along with real-life attorney Cheapskate, we explore the statements and confessions made by songwriters in popular music and pass judgment on those who choose to operate outside the law. Court is now in session. On this episode, we're going to be covering traffic infractions, something that everybody can relate to. And there's a lot of car stuff that happens in songs. If you're a fan of the band Cake, you know that they have at least one song on every album that's about cars or driving. We've got a lot of speed demons to talk about today. The Beach Boys song Fun, Fun, Fun is first on our docket for traffic court.
You'll have fun, fun, fun till my daddy takes a T-bird away. Fun, fun.
And Beach Boys, like Cake, another band where you can reliably expect to see cars in the lyrics on every single album.
I think there's a 1-to-1 ratio of cars and girls, and if there's room left on the album, they might throw in something else. First off, I don't know if they name her. It's just this nameless girl, presumably a minor.
Yep, Jane Doe.
Jane Doe has her daddy's car.
Yes.
And she's cruising through the hamburger stand now. I don't know if it's a drive-through or if she collided with the hamburger stand.
Well, that wouldn't be a very solid hamburger stand if you could drive through it in a T-Bird. Maybe if she was driving a Hummer or something.
My big sister drove through the front window of a supermarket accidentally. No one was hurt, thankfully. Just took out a plate glass window.
Yeah.
But these things happen. Let's presume that she has demolished a hamburger stand. She'd be cited for something.
Yeah, depending on how she demolishes the hamburger stand.
Her insurance rates are going up regardless. But we wanted to talk about her having her daddy's T-Bird because she has fun until her daddy takes her T-Bird away. Does she have permission to have the T-Bird in the first place? Auto theft by a minor or a dependent? That was my question here.
One of the ground rules for this podcast is that if the song doesn't expressly say where it's taking place, it takes place in the city and state where the band is from. Beach Boys, obviously from California. Ground rule number 2 is that in California, you should assume everything is illegal unless you're told otherwise. This, however, is a bit tricky because line 3 starts with, seems she forgot all about the library like she told her old man now. It sounds like her dad gave her permission to take the car and go to the library. Now, the fact that she didn't go to the library is irrelevant. She's got permission to be driving the car. So it looks like it's definitely not theft. Because theft requires you to take something with the intent of keeping it and not giving it back.
She might get grounded, but she isn't going to get arrested.
Right. In some places, she might get charged with joyriding, which is you take a vehicle and you drive around with it, but you intend to bring it back when you're done. In the California Vehicle Code says that it's only joyriding if the owner of the car doesn't consent to you having it. It's entirely possible that her dad stole the car and then let her borrow it, in which case she could be charged with joyriding.
Just a family of miscreants destroying California one hamburger stand at a time.
Yeah, that's exactly what you expect to see in Beach Boys songs.
It sounds like, assuming that she hasn't collided with a burger stand, that she's off the hook. So guilty or not guilty?
That's going to depend on some other things. She's not guilty of stealing, but she might be on a restricted license. California has restricted license for people ages 16 to 18.
That's different than a learner's permit, right?
Right. This is almost a full license, but you can't use it between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m., and you can't use it to drive around other teenagers. When we get to this next to last verse, we've got the singer saying, but you can come along with me because we got a lot of things to do now. You shouldn't lie now. You shouldn't lie. If the singer is between 16 to 18 and he's driving around with her unsupervised, then he's probably violating the restricted license statute.
That sounds like Jane Doe's going to get off scot-free on this one.
I think the police chief of this town is just tearing his hair out looking for a way to bust them and can't do it.
Well, the court recommends that Jane Doe's dad gets her something safe and sensible like a Volvo. Get her own car. and then put a low jack on it so he knows where she is at all times.
Yeah, and with insurance rates going up like that, the only thing she's going to be able to afford is probably not something you can race in.
Sammy Hagar's I Can't Drive 55. I think in the video he was driving a Ferrari in that. If we can use that as some information to add to what we're looking at.
All right.
Sammy Hagar says several times that he can't drive 55. The question is whether or not he's actually traveling or wants to travel faster or slower than 55 miles per hour. When I went back and looked at the lyrics, it looks like he can't reach 55 miles an hour. He's driving too slow. So my first question was, if you are traveling on a freeway under the speed limit, is that against the law?
If you've ever been on the interstate, you'll see the signs that say that they have a minimum speed in order to travel on it, which is why you don't see tractors and Amish buggies and what have you trundling down the interstate. Now, California, where, again, Sammy Hagar is from, it allows you to get a speed ticket for driving upon a highway at such a slow speed as to impede or block the normal and reasonable movement of traffic. It sounds like he's already in the middle of a traffic jam in much of this song because it takes him 16 hours to get to Los Angeles from wherever the heck he's going from.
Yeah, no, I had a thought on that because in the first line he says he's got 1 foot on the brake and 1 on the gas. That's not good. That's not good for your brakes. It's not good for your engine. And then later in the song he says, when I drive that slow, it's hard to steer and I can't get my car out of second gear. Well, if you're in second gear, you're probably not traveling more than 25 miles an hour. And if you are trying to, if you're hitting the accelerator, you're going to burn up your transmission. So this car sounds like it's about to fall apart. The wheels are going to come off.
Right, but it is a Ferrari, according to the video.
It is a Ferrari, but a poorly maintained Ferrari.
Right.
Should this car be on the road? Is it safe to be driving in this thing?
Probably not. You would have to look into the administrative regulations in order to figure out what exactly a car has to do to be roadworthy. I will venture a guess that a car that can't get out of second gear, if you haven't put on the big orange hazard triangle on the back, you shouldn't be driving it.
So here's Sammy. He's driving a car that may not be able to even reach the speed of 55. Doesn't help that traffic is backed up. He says in the first part of the song, so I tried my best illegal move. And then later on, I think he references another weird maneuver. He's doing crazy road tricks to get around these people just to get to wherever it is he's going. He's admitted to reckless driving. I think.
Yeah. California's definition of reckless driving is willful and wanton disregard for the safety of persons or property. So it's likely that he's doing something without really caring about whether he crashes into anybody or not. And why would he? Because he's driving a junker car. He's not going to lose that much money if he wrecks.
Now, the cops in this case are serious about catching him. The judge has said, boy, just one more, we're going to throw your ass in the city joint. So he's a chronic offender. He's been in front of this judge for driving infractions before. In the kind of the chorus, he says, post my face, wanted dead or alive, take my license, all that jive, I can't drive 55. So this judge has it out for him that he has posted a dead or alive bounty on Sammy Hagar? That seems really harsh to me.
Yeah, well, let's jump back a little to how many tickets has he gotten? And we can figure this out based just on the vehicle code. Your third ticket at over 100 miles per hour, and it looks like at one point he's been written up going 125. This isn't really fitting our theory with the car that isn't getting out of second gear, but maybe he's got two cars.
Or before he destroyed the clutch on it, it used to be able to travel at a speed that you'd expect from a Ferrari.
So your third ticket at over 100 miles an hour is going to get you a suspended license. And then if he gets another one on his suspended license, then he goes to jail. So it looks like he only has, if it's just one more, gets his ass in the city joint, it looks like he has 3 tickets already.
Okay.
And as for wanted dead or alive, you actually can issue a bounty.
Okay.
And you actually can issue dead or alive bounties.
Still, in
yes.
21st century California.
Yes, that's true. But if you want to capture the person, you have to do it legally. So you can't go out and kill him to bring him in. If you find him dead and bring him back, you can collect on the bounty, but you can't just shoot him. Now, in the olden days, governors used to be able to declare somebody an outlaw, which means you are not protected by any of our laws. Go ahead and just kill this dude if you want, but that's unconstitutional now because you don't have the chance to defend yourself.
It's reassuring that I'm not going to get blasted for having too many parking tickets. Where is he coming from? If Sammy Hagar is traveling at 55 miles an hour from Los Angeles, how many miles away is he starting from?
So it takes him 16 hours to get to LA, according to the last verse. Assuming he's going 55 the whole way, he's starting 880 miles away.
Mm-hmm. That's not very practical.
No, if he's taking Interstate 10 the whole way, this means he's starting around El Paso. Granted, with the cost of real estate in Los Angeles these days, it might actually be more practical to commute from El Paso than to buy a house there.
There's a lot to unpack in this song.
Yeah, it's renowned for its Byzantine complexity. It's
trying to decipher the clues. So let's just recap real quick before we pass judgment on Samuel Hagar. Reckless driving.
Yep.
He comes right out and says it. Yep. The car is probably not road safe. I mean, we just kind of have to infer that he's not been taking care of this thing. He should not be on the highway. And there's also some issue with the local law enforcement where they're actively wanting him, captured by bounty hunters. So guilty or not guilty? We got it. He's dead to rights. We got him pulling those illegal moves.
Guilty indeed.
I sentenced Sammy Hagar to a driver's safety class, and also to take his Ferrari to Mr. Goodwrench and get that transmission checked out.
And I sentenced Sammy Hagar to record some public service announcements promoting mass transit, which is good for safety and also good for the environment.
And lastly, this case falls right in the middle of property crime and traffic safety. Johnny Cash's One Piece at a Time.
I'd get it one piece at a time, and it wouldn't cost me a dime. You'll know it's me when I come through your town. I'm gonna ride around.
Which is a song about Johnny Cash works at an auto manufacturing plant, and over the course of many years steals components to a car and assembles them on his own to have a one-of-a-kind vehicle. This seems, again, going back to awful but lawful, very unsafe. But also, he's just come right out and said he's been stealing from his employer. So let's talk about the workplace implications first. Workplace theft? I think so.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Because he's taken this from his workplace without permission, and he has no intent to return it. On the other hand, he's done this over the entire course of his career. And he's in Michigan. The song makes it clear that he is working on an assembly line in Detroit. And Michigan has a 6-year statute of limitations. So the parts that he stole more than 6 years ago, they can't come after him for.
So presumably he started working in Detroit in 1949. The last date referenced in the song is a motor that he got for the car was 1973. And I think it might even extend beyond that. But let's just work with those numbers. So that's over a period of 24 years. At least the motor is something that we can ding him on. The transmission was a 53.
Yeah, he's gotten away with the transmission.
The transmission was a 53, and the motor turned out to be a 73. Okay, so the transmission is his. Motor still belongs to GM.
Right. Assuming that he's recorded the song between 73 and 79.
Okay. And then overall, now with provenance of all these parts in question, who owns the car, and would that person be liable in the event of an accident?
So most of this car belongs to Johnny because he has stolen the majority of it before the 6-year statute of limitations. And it certainly doesn't belong to GM. Now, to the extent that anyone other than Johnny owns this car, the owner of a car isn't liable for damages caused by somebody who stole it. So if Johnny drives this thing and gets into an accident, GM isn't at fault.
It's not the vehicle's fault unless he's ghostwriting this car.
Right, or unless GM had done something so obviously stupid that they made no attempt to stop the theft. If Johnny was just openly carrying parts out of the factory and the CEO was there waving him on, then you might make an argument that GM was responsible. But I don't think that happened here.
I gotta feel like if he was able to smuggle out a big block engine out of a GM plant, that there's somebody's looking the other way. Whether it's the security guard, it's probably not the CEO, but somebody on the line might have seen something but didn't snitch on him.
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay, so he's driving this thing. He's showing it off all over town. He's singing about it. He's so happy with it. This thing can't be street legal, right? How is it safe to drive?
Well, looking at the lyrics of the song, it's not much saying that there's stuff here that is definitely not street legal. So he's saying, when we tried to put the motor in, all the holes were gone, so we drilled it out so they would fit, but eventually he got it running just like a song. The back end looked kind of funny, but we put it together and we got through. Well, that's when we noticed we had only one tail fin. Well, tail fin isn't required. Now, the headlight was another site. We had two on the left and one on the right. Well, in Michigan, you only need to have one on the left and one on the right. You can have more than that if you want. As far as I know, this car is street legal.
It could even be extra safe. He's added additional features such as an extra headlight.
Oh yeah.
So maybe so we'll give him a pass. We'll give him a pass on the structural integrity of this vehicle. But then he goes down to the courthouse. All right. Johnny shows up. Doesn't have a title in his hand. A title can't exist for this car. Presuming that the courthouse does issue him tags, so he's not just getting pulled over every day in this monstrosity. How could that happen? Wouldn't the auditor's office be in trouble for issuing tags for a homebrew car?
Well, we'll put it in the show notes, but the Michigan Secretary of State has a really helpful page that explains how you get a title for a home-built car, which is what anybody who drives a hot rod does.
Oh.
But it looks like Johnny is probably not going to be able to get one because he has to show a bill of sale for the engine, the transmission, and the frame. He didn't buy any of those things, so unless he's got fraudulent bills of sales...
Well, I wouldn't put it past him because he's just admitted to a 24-year, at least 24-year history of theft.
Oh yeah, criminal mastermind like this should have no trouble coming up with a fraudulent bill of sale.
Red tape isn't going to stop Johnny Cash, but regardless, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty of workplace theft of the stuff he's stolen within the past 6 years. And then possibly of forgery for drafting fraudulent bills of sale. And I sentence Johnny to volunteer with the Michigan Secretary of State's office to help them process tags for hot rods.
I sentenced Johnny to taking a course at night school for automotive repair and maintenance, just to make sure if he's making any more of these home-built cars that they are roadworthy and aren't going to fall apart on the highway.
I might even sentence him to teaching a course at the local Votech.
Thanks to our announcer, Deb Slater. If there's a song you'd like us to feature, send your song ideas to songcrimes@gmail.com. If you like the songs you hear, buy them on iTunes, or even better, support your local independent music store. You can also follow us on Twitter, and if you like the show, please rate and review it on iTunes. And as always, don't do anything stupid, but if you do, keep your mouth shut. Court is adjourned.
Would you like to go undercover to fight discrimination? If so, you can become a fair housing tester. Find your local fair housing organization at nationalfairhousing.org.